Welcome to my how to plan content stream tutorial, whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk about the process that I use and that I'm using for my friend Haru to actually figure out what he wants to do from a content perspective, which platforms we want to target, and how much time we actually want to spend on it. Let's get into it. So, a few guiding principles that I think are really important when you are planning content or trying to get a schedule for yourself together so that you know what you're pushing toward are first and foremost, syndicate your content whenever possible. And if you don't know what that means, I'm basically just saying if you are doing, for instance, a 2-hour stream on Twitch, there's no reason that you can't turn that Twitch stream into a YouTube video and also a couple of shorts. If you're already investing time and content on one particular platform, you should always be looking for ways to, yes, say hi, YouTube. You should always be looking for ways to cut that and spin that into content that will serve you in other places. That's not to say that you should never have an original piece of content. I actually think that you should. However, we know that we've got 1 million platforms these days. There's Instagram and TikTok and X, formerly Twitter. There's Twitch. There's just a million different places where you might potentially get some exposure. So I find it's easiest to work smarter and not harder. So anytime you're looking to schedule what you do, I recommend being super mindful of places that you can repurpose some of that. When it comes to setting goals, if you sit down and say, I'm going to crank out 3 YouTube videos and 15 shorts, and I'm going to stream 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a week for 6 hours each, you are not going to hit those goals unless you've got literally nothing else going on. And sometimes when you are watching other creators, it can be easy to think, wow, they're always posting on other platforms and they stream every single day of the week. I feel like such a loser because I can't do that. But your situation is probably different than theirs. So try not to compare yourself and what you can do to what other people can do. And know that even if you don't have 100 hours a week to dedicate to content creation, you can still be successful and have fun in this space. The next guiding principle, focus on only a few platforms. Like I mentioned earlier, there are tons of spaces where you could be posting things, and it can feel a little overwhelming. In my opinion, if you go into your schedule each week or each month and you're like, okay, I have to post something on every platform, that's going to be kind of tough because you're spreading yourself thin. You may or may not have time to really dedicate to each individual one. So I recommend taking a look at all available options and picking maybe 2 to 4 that you really want to grow in. For me, I tend to prioritize TikTok and YouTube over Twitch. I prioritize TikTok because short form content is super easy to make, and I can see actually in my analytics that my content rotates and is viewed by a lot more people there than it is here. So for me, it hits that perfect intersection of, is it easy and do I get a lot of reward and payoff for doing it? That's my experience. You might have a different experience depending on the platform, but I know that I like to do or spend my time in places where I feel I'm gonna actually get traction and it feels good. Not that you should necessarily be going for numbers if that's not what you're into, but I am someone that needs a little bit of a payoff. Also, thank you for the resub, Amy. 25 months, holy cow, thank you. I appreciate it, welcome in. So, my recommendation is to focus on only a few platforms, do a little research, but also see what feels good to you. Because honestly, if you don't enjoy creating content or posting on a particular platform, you're probably not going to be consistent in doing it. So do what feels good and also what makes sense. And then my last guiding principle for content creation is a plan only works if you work it, which seems probably really obvious, but I think a lot of us have the best of intentions and we'll sit down and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do this week, and this is how many hours I'm spending on this particular thing. But then if you don't actually work the plan, you aren't going to see any results whatsoever. So like, it should go without saying, but I feel it bears reminding, if you put down on paper what you are actually going to do, you have to do it in order for it to work. All right, so without further ado, I am going to hop over and take a look at a plan that I created for Haru. And it feels weird to say created for him because I actually created it with him. I started out by talking through a little bit of like a questionnaire with him to kind of understand what his goals were and what he was looking to do and what he's interested in. And then we basically transformed that into a plan for the month of November. So, voila! Oh my God, I'm too big. Hang on. Must be smaller. And let me move myself out of the way here. Okay. I think we're better. I think this is viewable. So starting on like the left-hand side of the page, I really wanted to make this a one-pager. I think he likes dogs. Yes, how astute you are, Merc. Very, very good observation. For those of you that don't know Haru, he is a dog VTuber. He's Haru the Goldie, and he's a photographer. Did I get it right? Because he also likes photography. It's very cute. But I tried to make his page with branding because I think if you like looking at something, you'll be more likely to pull it up. If you wanted to do something like this in a plain text file, honey, you absolutely could. It doesn't have to look like this. Starting on the left-hand side, Haru and I talked a little bit about his desired platforms, or the platforms that he wants to target growth for. And he determined that those were YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. I think those are really good picks. They also happen to match my same priorities, so I agree wholeheartedly with that and think it's a good plan. So the next thing that we talked about, given those platforms, is how many hours a week he actually has to dedicate to content creation. And this is really important. Like, this actually goes back to what I said about being really realistic about your time. So Haru actually literally has 20 hours a week to dedicate to this, and that's not a stretch. That fits comfortably into his schedule based on his life situation. Looking at how much time Haru actually has to dedicate to content creation and what he wants to focus on, we came up with this distribution of how he's going to spend his time. And this is weekly. That's a pretty tall order. Again, if you don't have 20 hours a week to dedicate to content creation, you're maybe gonna set these goals a little lower. Another thing that I tried to do here, and it's something that I also try to do for myself, which can be hard sometimes, is trying to set my goals surrounding the amount of time that I can invest. So I try to really set goals surrounding how much time I can invest and not necessarily a finished product. Because if you say, okay, well, each week I'm gonna churn out 2 YouTube videos, if you don't have enough time and you can't actually complete 2 videos, you're probably gonna feel bad about that. You shouldn't feel bad because you worked really hard regardless, so it doesn't actually matter so long as you're making progress. But for me, mentally, I have to set goals that are more geared at what I can contribute and less at output. For yourself, if you feel good about setting goals that are driven more surrounding what you're actually able to yield, you can totally do that. But for Haru, I set his goals to be more time-bound based on what he has available. Moving on from that, I wanted to do a little bit of a skill assessment for Haru, because when you're planning your content, I think it's really important to think about the things that you do well and the things that are maybe opportunities or areas of improvement, because sometimes you can use content creation as a way to kind of build on either strengths or weaknesses, if you want to call them that. So this is Haru's own words. He said that his strengths are his editing skills, which I can certainly agree with. If you ever come to my stream and see anything moving, it was likely animated by Haru. He's very good with motion graphics and video design. He also said that his sense of humor was a strength. Some of us would say that's debatable, but hey, you know what? Your perception is your reality, for sure. For sure. So those are what he said his strengths were. And his opportunities, he said, were consistency and creating content, which probably sounds really funny, like you're a content creator, but your opportunity is creating content. But for a lot of people, that's true. Like, actually creating content can be tough. And what I find more often than not is that people will go live. Like, they'll just go live and they'll do it like 5 days a week and they'll invest hours and hours streaming. But getting them to create a short or a YouTube video or an Instagram post is like pulling teeth. They don't actually want to create content. They just want to stream and play funny video game, which is fine if that's what you're into. But if you're actually trying to move into other platforms, surprise, surprise, you do need to actually create content. So we're trying to move to a place where we're also investing time in other spaces. And that's kind of the goal. I am the Haru humor appreciator. Somebody has to appreciate it, Maro. Somebody has to appreciate it. So moving on, after we kind of talked a little bit about his strengths and opportunities, thank you for the hype train, by the way, everyone. That's so sweet. I appreciate that. We moved on to talk about his content interests, because I really feel like it's important, again, when you are trying to plan your content, to think about what you actually like doing. That doesn't mean that you're only going to do the same thing over and over again, week after week. But if you know the sorts of things that interest you or that you find entertaining, that can really help to guide and inform the choices that you make in terms of what you want to create. So for Haru, his content interests are RimWorld, Apex, and .exe videos, which are apparently real funny little Apex compilations. So we talked a little bit about that, and if you've been to Haru's stream, you've definitely seen some RimWorld or Apex, so that shouldn't be very surprising. And then the last thing we talked about here is his niche. Niche? I say niche, which he has not yet identified. So I do want to talk a little bit about this because I don't think it is discussed enough, and it is actually, in my most humble opinion, so important to think critically about your niche, which for me is basically what makes you unique in your community. Or you could also consider it as one of the reasons or motivators for people to watch you or consume your content over someone else's. Because if you think about it, there's like thousands and thousands of content creators. There's so many. So in a world where you could view literally anything, why should someone watch you? That can be a really tough question to answer for yourself. For me, my niche has always been one of my, I guess, more defining features is that I am super into tarot cards and astrology. And that's authentically what I'm into, which is important. I'll talk more about that later. But offline, I do a ton of tarot readings. I'm always into astrology. I'm always talking about astrology. So when I created my character, which is Jinxie, she's an astrologer. Everything on stream is themed. And that's what I do. Like, if you come to stream, I do tarot card readings and we talk about astrology all the time. So that is a niche. Tarot reading in general in content creation is a smaller niche. And if you look at VTubers, it becomes even smaller than that. So that's kind of what I'm into. And it's important to think about what is unique to you or what defines you. And if you are interested in brand building, which some of you may not be, and that's okay. Everything doesn't have to be a brand. You can log on and just be yourself and do your thing and not think a single thing about it. That is amazing. But if you are interested in brand building, like, your niche should make sense. If you know that I'm into tarot and astrology and it's all we ever talk about, and I go live one day and suddenly I'm doing sports commentary, that's probably going to be a little weird. Not to say that you wouldn't stay and watch it. Maybe you would. I don't know. But if you are a long-term community member that has been hanging out with me, it's probably not the content that you expected. And I also think that it's important to do your own thing and find your niche. And what I mean when I say that is sometimes, like, I think it's very easy to look at what other people are doing and see that it's successful and be like, oh, so-and-so is doing this and they get a lot of community engagement and they have channel point rewards for it. And like, that looks like that works. So I'm going to start doing it too. But the thing to remember about that is that works for so-and-so because they are so-and-so. Replicating other people's behaviors and ideas and, activities is not a guarantor of you having same or even similar results because you're a different person. You're going to do it in a different way. You're going to be engaging with a different community. So as tempting as it can be to like look over the fence at what your neighbor is doing and try to just like copy paste, please, 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 like, take time to reflect on what you are about and what you're into, and if you care at all about branding, what you want your brand to be. So lastly, in the creator assessment, we have some goals, and I find that it is really important to set non-numeric goals. And if you care about numbers, you can set numeric goals. I'm never going to sit here and tell you, as someone who IRL works in tech, I am a woman in STEM, I'm never going to tell you that you can move a number without even knowing what the number is or what you want the number to be, because that's not really a truth. But I will say that if you don't want to know your numbers, you don't care, that's fine. Set a non-numeric goal. And I think even if you do set a numeric goal, you should still set a non-numeric one so that there's less pressure. So for Haru's non-numeric goal, he said that he wanted to do some community building and he wanted to continue to grow his editing skills. So the community building comment kind of takes me back up here. You'll notice that we said that he would have 2 hours a week that he would spend on Discord. And that was not something that he originally said he wanted to do. That's something I told him he would do. Because if you want to work on community building, you have to actually engage with them. So I thought it would be important to carve out some time to actually engage with his community a little bit more than he has been. That could be in the form of watch-alongs, a question of the day that everybody can answer, sharing your favorite memes. It doesn't have to be rocket science. Just these are people that you generally like and hang out with on stream. So say hello. That's it. And that's community building. There's nothing saying that you're going to have an instant result, but yeah, if you want people to hang out with you, you have to talk to them. So that's step number 1. And then for continuing to grow editing skills, that's really going to feed back into the heavy amount of time that we are spending on YouTube and on TikTok. I only allowed him 4 hours a week of stream time. So he can do 2 sessions for 2 hours, whatever that looks like. And of course, if he has extra time, he can throw it there. But his priorities really need to be spent over here because streaming is the easy thing for him. Where he sometimes struggles is in some of these other areas. So we want to prioritize spending time on the things that we're less comfortable with so that we can begin to get comfortable with them. In terms of his numeric goals, he said that he wanted 5 new followers on each platform, and that's in a month. So in a month, I feel like that's pretty realistic. You can do that in a month, and we feel pretty good that if he works this plan, he'll get there. Again, remember the guiding principle. Do what's realistic for you. If you sit down and say, I'm gonna get 100 new followers on each platform in 1 month from doing these things, that's probably not gonna happen. I love your ambition, but it's probably not a thing. So just set your goals to be as realistic as possible. And if you surpass them, awesome, you can readjust them next month. And then metrics that matter were average viewers and followers. So those are 2 metrics that he's going to be looking at. We did not set a goal for average viewers yet because average viewers, especially on Twitch, can be a really tough needle to move and to move consistently or maintain. So that's why we set numeric goals that would be much easier to maintain to help build his confidence and contribute to that community so that later he can focus more on average viewers. So that was Haru's creator assessment. And after spending time kind of talking through these things, that's where I came over here to his November content plan to actually start talking about what we're looking for in terms of results. So we said in the month of November, we're gonna look for at least 1 YouTube video per week. Again, to harken back, that could be pretty aggressive if you don't have a lot of time. For me, I try to get 1 YouTube video up a month because I don't have a lot of time. But for Haru, 1 video per week is doable. So that's where we set that goal. We said that he would post 4 TikTok shorts per week. If you remember talking about how we need to syndicate or repurpose content, making 4 shorts is an awesome opportunity to also cross-post those to YouTube shorts. Especially if they are not using copyrighted music. Try to avoid those if you are cross-posting for sure. As I said, we're doing 2 streams per week, and then I set a goal for him to do 1 watch along in his Discord. I think that's fun. Just doing 1 per month for the month of November should be pretty attainable and also fun. Selfishly, I would like to attend. So, get it scheduled, get it on the books. I then sat down and looked at potential game suggestions for Haru because Haru does excel in being able to find titles that he's really interested in, but sometimes Haru struggles a little bit with community and chat engagement with his games. So notice that when we talked about his content interests, he said RimWorld was one. So I said, okay, RimWorld. Let's definitely stream RimWorld, but let's do it with the Twitch integration plugin, which is so freaking fun. It allows your community to actually earn points and put things in your RimWorld. Like you can spawn enemies, you can spawn armor, you can spawn furniture, you can even spawn like new villagers and stuff. When I first started watching Haru, this was one of my favorite streams that he would do because I could actually get really involved and I was super motivated to stay in chat because I wanted to get those points so I could drop a bunch of wolves off at the base and really wreck his shit. So, RimWorld, but with Twitch integration. Another game suggestion that I made for him, which is not one that he mentioned, but it's one that I think he would really enjoy, is Wizard with a Gun. Haru has really chaotic energy. He likes shooters and he really likes collabs. So I thought it would be important to have some form of collab option for him next month so that he can play with other people if he wants to, because he really likes that. And then lastly, I also recommended a solo Baldur's Gate 3 run. We've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 as a group for what we call Fantasy Friday every day for months now, and we have such a great time. But Haru, I think, wants to do some meme builds and make some different decisions, and I think it would be super entertaining. I also think Baldur's Gate 3 is a really great opportunity to maybe offshoot content to other platforms, because between the choices that you make and the endless dialogue options that you have, like, it's hard to see everything in that game. So I think that's another good option. Moving on from game suggestions, I also wanted to give him some content ideas, which I think are important. as you try to like brainstorm what you want to do, if you're just churning, for instance, if you're just like streaming on Twitch and churning out VODs to YouTube, I mean, that is definitely something, but I feel like if you can be a little more strategic in choosing what you actually want to produce and doing storyboards and thinking through what you want that experience to look like, it really helps when it comes to being more effective and creating content that you can be proud of and that others really enjoy. So for content ideas, Haru actually mentioned a narrative-based RimWorld series, which sounded so interesting to me, but it's apparently when you do the full run and then you voice over, which is awesome. You can kind of tell the story of your colony, which sounds incredible. So I absolutely included that. Of course, funny stream clips. Come on. His strength is his sense of humor. So of course we're going to include funny stream clips. And those are pretty easy. You can even have your community help you clip, which is really nice and helps take care of some of the work involved. And then another content idea I had for him is to actually try to do some form of tutorial or series on editing. Because Haru is a very gifted video editor, and I think there's a real opportunity for him to share some of his soft skills with other people. I'm gonna point out that tutorial and educational content does really well, particularly on YouTube. I'm doing it right now. Like, people need help. I need help. I mean, think about it. When you don't know how to do something, what's the first thing you do? For a lot of us, we go to YouTube. So I think if you have strengths and things that you can share with other people, doing a little tutorial is going to be really beneficial for you and other people. So why not do it? And then lastly, for homework, I said that he needs to work on carving out his niche. Like, literally. We talked at length about that and why having your niche is important, but yeah, he needs to spend some time thinking about what his is, because once he finds what that is for him, he can build on that. You can build a community around that, and then you get to spend all of your time talking about and doing stuff that you love with cool people. Find your niche, find your people. That's my branding for that. So yeah, this is what I put together for Haru. There's a creator assessment, there's a content plan. This is kind of the approach that I take when planning my own content as well. Mine looks a little bit different since my creator assessment is in my brain, but if you find this helpful and you think this will work for you, you're welcome to steal it shamelessly. Just knock yourself out, talk through whatever you think needs to be talked through with yourself. So with that, that's it. That concludes my overview of how I plan content. Eventually, I would like to talk about how I schedule content, because there is special software that I use that comes with a lot of really neat analytics that even talks about the best times to post things. So when I have time to actually film that, I will post it. If you struggle with posting content to multiple platforms, I think having a tool to help you schedule it out is really helpful, and it's part of how I stay organized. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, you filthy animals.